The music was loud enough to make the crystal chandeliers tremble. Golden light spilled across the marble floor while laughter floated through the air like champagne bubbles. Waiters moved between tables, carrying silver trays filled with sparkling drinks. And guests dressed in elegant suits and shimmering gowns gathered beneath the glow of celebration. From the outside, it looked perfect. Like a dream. But to Amara, standing near the entrance in her simple white blazer, it felt like standing in the middle of a storm no one else could see. She watched her husband, Daniel. He stood across the hall, smiling, no, laughing, with a glass raised in his hand. His body leaned comfortably toward two women dressed in glittering red and gold. They laughed with him, touching his arm, their eyes bright with admiration. Behind them, the live band played an upbeat rhythm, and people clapped along. Daniel didn't look back once. Not even to notice that his wife had arrived. Amara's fingers tightened around her purse strap. She told herself not to jump to conclusions. It was a party. People mingled. People laughed. That's what happened at events like this. Still, something felt wrong. She stepped forward slowly, heels tapping against polished marble. Guests greeted Daniel with respect as she approached, but none greeted her. Some glanced briefly, their expressions curious, almost dismissive, before turning away. Amara had grown used to that. Daniel always introduced her simply. My wife. Never mentioning her education, her achievements, her past. As if her existence began and ended with him. She reached the table just as Daniel burst into laughter again. Oh, there she is, he said casually when he noticed her, not warmth. Not pride, just acknowledgement. One of the women raised an eyebrow. This is your wife? Daniel nodded, taking a sip. Yes. The silence that followed carried judgment so sharp it cut through Amara's chest. She offered a polite smile. Good evening. The women exchanged glances. Well, we expected someone more. The sentence trailed off, unfinished but painfully clear. Daniel didn't defend her. Instead, he chuckled. Amara prefers simple things. She's not really into this world. Not into this world. The words echoed. Amara felt heat rise behind her eyes but refused to let tears form. She would not give them that satisfaction. Instead, she turned toward the stage, pretending to watch the musicians. Inside, her thoughts spiraled. She remembered when Daniel first met her, when he admired her quiet strength. Her independence, her calm intelligence. Back then, he didn't care about status or appearances. But success had changed him. Or maybe, it revealed who he had always been. The band's tempo slowed. Guests moved toward the dance floor. Daniel joined them, not with Amara, but with one of the women from earlier. Applause rose as they danced confidently beneath warm lights. Amara stood alone. Invisible in a room full of people. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. A realization. She had spent years shrinking herself to preserve a marriage that no longer protected her dignity. Years tolerating subtle insults. Overlooked introductions, forgotten invitations. Tonight was not the beginning of humiliation. It was simply the first time she truly saw it. Her phone vibrated in her hand. A message flashed across the screen. She opened it, expecting nothing important, but her breath stopped as she read. A name she hadn't seen in years. A number she thought she'd left behind forever. And one sentence. We need to talk. It's time you came home. Amara looked up slowly. Across the room, Daniel spun his partner, laughing freely. He had no idea. No idea that tonight, while he believed he was diminishing her, the course of his entire future had already begun to change. Amara slipped her phone back into her purse. And for the first time that evening, she smiled. Not out of politeness, but because somewhere deep inside, a plan was beginning to form. Amara didn't leave the party immediately. She stayed. Not because she wanted to watch Daniel laugh with strangers while ignoring her existence, but because she needed time to think. Time to absorb the message still echoing in her mind. It's time you came home. Home. The word stirred memories she had, buried so deeply that even she sometimes doubted they were real. She moved toward the balcony where the music softened into a distant hum. Cool night air brushed against her skin, grounding her. Below, the city shimmered, endless lights. Endless ambition, endless competition. Daniel loved this world. Power. Status. Recognition. Amara had once lived in it too. Before she chose anonymity. Before she chose him. Her phone vibrated again. This time she answered. Hello. A calm, familiar voice responded. You took longer than expected. Her heart tightened. I didn't expect to hear from you again. We never stopped watching over you, the voice said gently. Your father's condition is changing. And the board. They're asking questions. Amara's gaze drifted across the skyline. I left that life behind. You left the spotlight, the voice corrected. But not who you are. You can't erase your place in the company. Silence stretched. Memories flooded in, towering glass headquarters. Boardroom debates. Her father's proud smile as he introduced her as his successor. Years of training. Strategy sessions. Leadership development. She had walked away from all of it. For love. For simplicity. For Daniel. I'll think about it, she said quietly. That may not be enough anymore. The call ended. Amara remained on the balcony, breathing slowly. Her mind replayed every sacrifice she'd made. Every compromise. Every moment she minimized herself to protect Daniel's pride. She hadn't lied to him. But she hadn't told him everything either. Not about her family's influence. Not about the global corporation her father built. Not about the wealth she never touched. She wanted to be loved for herself, not her background. Now she wondered if that love had ever truly existed. Behind her, the balcony door opened. Daniel stepped out, adjusting his cufflinks. There you are, he said casually. You disappeared. Amara studied him, the confidence, the ease, the distance. I needed air. He leaned against the railing. You could have tried mingling more. Networking matters. These people are important. Amara tilted her head slightly. Important to you. He exhaled impatiently. You don't understand how this world works. A faint sadness crossed her expression, not anger. Not frustration, something deeper. You're right, she said softly. Maybe I don't. Daniel checked his watch. I'm heading back in. Try not to isolate yourself. He left before she responded. Amara watched the door close behind him. That sentence lingered. Try not to isolate yourself. How ironic. Years of emotional distance, and he believed she was the one creating space. She returned inside briefly, collected her coat, and left quietly. No dramatic exit. No confrontation. Just silence. The drive home was peaceful, headlights cutting through darkness. She replayed the call again and again. Her father. The company. The board. And the truth she'd hidden from her husband. By the time she reached the house, dawn's earliest glow touched the horizon. She stepped inside, removing her shoes, absorbing the stillness. This house had been their dream. Their beginning. But lately, it felt more like a waiting room between two different lives. She walked into her study and opened a locked drawer. Inside lay documents, untouched for years. Corporate reports. Shareholder updates. A sealed envelope bearing her family name. Her fingers hovered over it. Then she opened it. Inside was a formal notice. Ownership confirmations. Executive succession clauses. Legal recognition of her controlling stake. She read slowly. And when she finished, she leaned back in her chair. Daniel believed he was building influence through connections. He believed he understood power. He had no idea that the woman he dismissed already possessed more authority than anyone he sought approval from. Amara closed the folder gently. Her decision wasn't about revenge. It was about identity. Respect. Truth. And as sunrise filled the room with light, she realized something undeniable. The next time Daniel saw her, he wouldn't see the version of Amara who stayed silent. He would meet the one who never truly disappeared. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting soft gold across the living room. The house was quiet, peaceful, but inside Amara, thoughts moved with sharp clarity. She hadn't slept much. Instead, she sat reviewing documents, contracts, and reports that connected her to a world she once walked away from. Each page reminded her of the discipline, intelligence, and leadership she had been trained for. She wasn't inexperienced. She wasn't ordinary. She had simply chosen silence. The sound of footsteps pulled her attention away. Daniel entered the kitchen, scrolling on his phone, barely noticing her presence. "Morning," he said absent-mindedly. "Morning." He poured coffee and spoke without looking up. "I've got meetings all day. Investors, partnerships. You know how it is." Amara watched him carefully. "Yes," she replied calmly. "I think I do." He nodded as if satisfied with that answer. Then his tone shifted slightly. "Oh, and next week there's another corporate gathering. Big one. Senior executives, founders, major players." He hesitated before adding, "You don't have to come if you're uncomfortable." The words weren't cruel, but they carried assumption. Assumption that she didn't belong. Amara folded her hands. "I'll think about it." Daniel grabbed his keys. "Good. It's not really your scene anyway." The door closed behind him. Silence returned. This time, Amara didn't feel small in it. She felt focused. She picked up her phone and dialed the number from the night before. "I'm ready," she said when the call connected. A pause, then relief on the other end. "The board meeting is tomorrow. Private jet leaves this afternoon." Amara exhaled slowly. "I'll be there." Hours later, she stood inside a sleek airport lounge. Dressed not in simplicity, but quiet authority. Her posture straight, her gaze calm, her confidence natural. No performance. No pretending. Just authenticity she had hidden for years. When the plane landed, a black car awaited her. As it drove toward the city's financial district, towering glass buildings rose ahead like monuments to ambition. Memories returned vividly. Walking these streets beside her father. Listening to executives debate strategy. Learning to lead without arrogance. The headquarters building came into view. Massive. Elegant. Dominant against the skyline. The car stopped. As Amara stepped out, staff members greeted her respectfully, some surprised, some emotional. "It's been a long time." She nodded politely, moving forward. Inside, everything felt familiar. The marble floors. The quiet professionalism. The boardroom doors. When she entered, conversation stopped. Executives rose. Not out of obligation, but recognition. The chairman spoke first. "We're glad you came." Amara took her seat. The meeting began, financial updates, expansion plans, internal conflicts. She listened carefully, occasionally asking precise questions that demonstrated her understanding of operations. Hours passed. By the end, the atmosphere had shifted. She wasn't seen as the absent successor anymore. She was seen as leadership. As she left, the chairman walked beside her. "You've been missed here." Amara smiled faintly. "I needed time to understand who I was outside this world. And now." She looked ahead thoughtfully. "Now I understand I never stopped being part of it." Back home that evening, Daniel returned energetic and proud. "You won't believe how today went," he said excitedly. "I met people who could change everything for my career." Amara listened quietly. "That's good," she said. He continued describing conversations. Opportunities, ambitions. unaware she had spent the day operating at a level far beyond what he imagined. Finally he paused. "What did you do today?" Amara met his eyes calmly. "I handled some business." He smiled casually. "Nice. Shopping counts as business sometimes." She didn't correct him. Not yet. Because timing mattered. Revelation mattered. And deep down, she knew the moment was coming. The moment where illusions would break and truth would stand undeniable. As night settled, Amara stood by the window, city lights reflecting in her eyes. Daniel believed he was rising. He believed he was approaching influence. He had no idea. He was already standing beside it. And soon, very soon, he would discover exactly who his wife truly was. Days passed, and the atmosphere inside the house began to shift in subtle ways. Daniel didn't notice it at first. Why would he? His schedule was full: meetings, networking dinners, presentations. His confidence grew with every new connection he believed would elevate his career. He walked through life convinced he was climbing toward power. Amara, meanwhile, moved quietly. But she was no longer passive. Phone calls filled her mornings, strategic discussions, financial reviews, executive briefings. She worked from her study, voice calm, decisions precise. Her involvement in the company strengthened daily. And word spread quickly among leadership. She was back. One evening, Daniel entered while she was finishing a call. "Approve the expansion proposal," she said. "But review the staffing projections before signing. I'll look at the revised report tomorrow." She ended the call. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Busy lately?" "A little." He shrugged. "Good to stay occupied." He didn't ask more. Didn't wonder. Didn't listen closely enough to notice the authority in her tone. The following week arrived. The corporate gathering Daniel had mentioned. He dressed sharply, adjusting his tie while glancing toward Amara. "So, are you coming?" She stood near the mirror, composed. "Yes." He blinked, slightly surprised. "Well, all right." The venue was grand, lights glowing warmly, music elegant rather than loud. Influential guests mingled with confident familiarity. Daniel immediately began greeting contacts. Amara observed quietly. But something different happened this time. As she walked across the room, a senior executive noticed her, then approached quickly. "Good evening." His respectful tone caught Daniel's attention. "We didn't expect you tonight," the executive continued. Amara smiled politely. "I decided to attend." Others began gathering. Nods of recognition. Professional greetings. Daniel looked confused. "You two know each other?" he asked. The executive glanced at him, surprised. "Of course." Daniel laughed awkwardly. "Well, she never mentioned." The executive paused, realizing something. "Oh. I see." The moment lingered. Unspoken understanding passed through the group, but no one explained. Instead, they excused themselves respectfully. Daniel turned to Amara once they were alone. "What was that about?" She met his eyes calmly. "Just business connections." His confusion didn't disappear. But the evening pulled his attention elsewhere. He returned to networking, determined to impress. Later, the host stepped onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Tonight we also welcome someone whose return to active leadership marks an exciting chapter for our organization." Daniel listened casually. The host continued. "A visionary investor, strategic advisor, and a key figure in our company's foundation." Applause began. Amara stood. Daniel froze. As she walked toward the stage, realization hadn't fully formed yet. Just fragments of confusion assembling into something bigger. She accepted the microphone. Her voice calm. Steady. "It's good to be back among familiar faces. I appreciate your support and look forward to building our future together." The applause intensified. Daniel's heart pounded. Colleagues turned toward him with surprised expressions. You didn't know. He couldn't answer. Because in that moment, watching his wife recognized by powerful leaders, truth finally collided with assumption. The woman he underestimated was not simply accompanying him through life. She was operating at a level he never imagined. When she returned to his side, silence filled the space between them. You, he began slowly, own part of this company? Amara answered gently. Yes. He struggled for words. How long? She didn't hesitate. Always. The weight of that response landed heavily. Years of dismissive comments. Years of assumptions. Years of quiet underestimation. All suddenly visible. Daniel looked around, seeing the room differently now. Seeing her differently. And for the first time, uncertainty replaced confidence. Because he realized something unsettling. He had tried to rise above someone who had never been beneath him. The drive home was silent. Neither spoke. But tension hung thick between them. At last Daniel whispered. Why didn't you tell me? Amara stared out the window. I wanted to be valued for who I am. Not what I have. His grip tightened on the steering wheel. And now? She turned toward him. Now I want honesty. The car continued through the night. And both understood, the next conversation they would have would change everything. The silence between them that night didn't end when they reached home. It stretched into the walls, into their movements, into the space they shared. Daniel walked inside first, placing his keys down slowly, as if delaying the inevitable. Amara followed, composed as always, but this time her calm carried weight. Neither spoke immediately. Finally Daniel turned. I need to understand, he said quietly. All these years. Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me the truth? Amara didn't respond right away. She took a moment, not to search for words, but to decide how honest she wanted to be. When we met, she began softly. You admired my kindness, my patience, my values. You didn't admire status. Because you didn't think I had any. Daniel swallowed. And when you started succeeding, she continued. I noticed something change. You began measuring people differently. Success became your lens. He looked away. I wanted to know if our marriage could exist without wealth defining it. And could it? He asked. Amara's voice remained calm. You tell me. The question landed harder than accusation. Memories surfaced for Daniel, dismissive remarks. Assumptions, subtle disrespect disguised as confidence. None of it malicious. But none of it harmless either. He sank into a chair. I never meant to belittle you. I know, she replied. But impact matters more than intention. The room fell quiet again. Days passed with emotional distance between them. Daniel became reflective, quieter at work, more observant. For the first time, he questioned his motivations, his ego, his ambitions. He replayed years of behavior through a different perspective. One afternoon he returned home early. Amara was preparing tea. I've been thinking, he said. She waited. I chased recognition so intensely that I stopped recognizing what I already had. His voice was sincere. You never competed with me. You supported me. Amara studied him carefully. And I repaid that by assuming superiority. He exhaled slowly. I'm sorry. No drama. No theatrics. Just humility. She didn't respond immediately. Because forgiveness isn't automatic, even when apology is genuine. Change takes consistency, she said at last. Not words. He nodded. I understand. Weeks later, the company hosted a major global summit. This time, Amara attended openly, not as someone hidden in the background, but as a visible leader. Daniel accompanied her. Not as someone seeking status, but as someone choosing partnership. The event hall buzzed with energy, investors, executives, innovators. When Amara delivered her address, her message wasn't about wealth or expansion. It was about values. Success without humility isolates us, she said to the audience. But success grounded in respect strengthens everyone around us. Daniel listened from the crowd. Pride filled him, not ego-driven pride, but admiration rooted in understanding. After the speech, he approached her. "You were incredible." She smiled. "Thank you." He offered his arm. "Walk with me." She accepted. And as they moved through the crowd, something had shifted between them, something stronger than before. Not illusion. Not hierarchy. But mutual respect. Life didn't transform into perfection. Marriage never does. They disagreed sometimes. Challenged each other. Grew individually and together. But one truth remained clear. Daniel no longer measured worth through wealth. And Amara no longer hid who she was. Their relationship became a partnership built on honesty. The foundation it should have had from the beginning. Years later, at a quiet anniversary dinner, Daniel raised a glass. "To the woman who taught me that value isn't defined by status." He paused. "But revealed through character." Amara smiled warmly. "And to the men who chose growth over pride." Glasses touched gently. No grand spectacle. No dramatic reveal. Just understanding, earned through mistakes, humility, and patience. And perhaps that was the greatest twist of all. The story wasn't about wealth hidden in secrecy. Or power revealed in shock. It was about transformation. Because sometimes the most powerful ending isn't revenge. It's growth. And the realization that love built on respect outlasts everything else.